but rather the goat is a picture of the Messiah who goes out into the destruction by the lawless one, which is referred to as Azazel, as the scapegoat, which in the pantheons of Rome and Greece they called Pan. The goat-headed demon of the Arabs, if that's the way you want to interpret it. Otherwise, it just means he went out to be a scapegoat. He went out unto Azazel, unto the idea of removing the sins. Either way you look at it, it does not refer to him actually, this goat referring to Satan in any kind of way, shape, or form. Just to reiterate, because it makes atonement, because it carries the sin. So you just got to remember that. In verse 23, Aharon shall then come into the tent of meeting, and shall take off the linen garments which he had put on when he went into the Kodesh place. Now you have to imagine Aharon. He has done all of these sacrifices. He's wearing linen, white linen, pure white linen from head to toe. He has got to be covered in blood. And we know this is the case, according to historic records. He is covered in blood, so it's time for him to take off those linen garments. And it is time for him to bathe. It says, he shall take off the garments which he put on when he went to the Kodesh place, and shall leave them there. And he shall bathe his body in water in the Kodesh place, and shall put on his garments, and shall come out and prepare his burnt offering, and the burnt offering of the people, and make atonement for himself and for the people, and burn the fat of the sin offering on the altar. And he who sent away the goat to Azazel washes his garments, and shall bathe his body in water, and afterward he comes into the camp. And the bull for the sin offering, and the goat for the sin offering, whose blood was brought into to make atonement in the Kodesh place, is brought outside the camp. And they shall burn their skins and their flesh and their dung with fire. And he who burns them washes his garments, and shall bathe his body in water, and afterward he comes into the camp. And this shall be for you a law forever. In the 7th month on the 10th day of the month, you afflict your beings. You afflict your nefesh. Again, it tells you, it commands you. We know this is a time of fasting. How else can you afflict the nefesh? The scriptures tell us clearly. If the life is in the blood, if the nefesh is in the blood, then how do you starve the blood? By not giving it the nutrients it needs via food and water. It is very clear cut, obvious. That's what fasting is about, afflicting your beings. And you do no work, the native or the stranger who sojourns among you. For on that day he makes Kippur, he makes atonement for you, to cleanse you, to be clean from all your sins before Yahuwah. So this is a time of compassion, a time of forgiving of sins, a covering of the sins. It is a Shabbat Shabbaton, it is a Sabbath of rest, it is a complete Sabbath, the model Sabbath, a time of complete rest for you. And you shall afflict your beings. Yahuwah says it yet again. He says it over and over. And he says it's a law forever. And the Kohen, the priest who is anointed and ordained to serve as Kohen or priest in his father's place, shall make atonement and shall put on the linen garments, the Kodesh garments. And he shall make atonement for the most Kodesh or set apart place, and make atonement for the tent of meeting, and for the altar, and make atonement for the Kohanim, the priest, and for all the people of the assembly. And this shall be for you a law forever, to make Kippur, to make atonement for the children of Yisrael, for all their sins once a year. They did as Yahuwah commanded Moshe, and it's very important that they had to do it exactly this way, for if they did not do it exactly this way, the Kohen HaGadol could clearly die. Yahuwah said if he does not bring the incense, he will surely die. If he does it in any way, Yahuwah will not accept the offering, and the children of Israel will not be forgiven for their sins for that year. So it's very important. This man cannot mess up. Yahuwah has put the entire system in the hand of this man. And it is preparing us for the coming of the Messiah, because it is the Messiah who will perform the prophetic acts that we see recorded in this ceremony for Yom Kippur, for the Day of Atonement. He is preparing us. This is the time for atonement, not just for Aharon, not just for the high priest, not just for the Kohanim, the other priests. It's not just a time of atonement for the set apart place or the altar. It's not just an atonement time for them. It is the atonement for the entire nation. We have to understand the gravity of that. That everybody's lives, all the judgments hinged on the performance of this man and on their own performances. Whether they had truly made teshuvah as a nation, whether they had truly made repentance as a nation. And it was on this day that their fate would be sealed, literally. So it is a very important time. But it points to the national redemption of the children of Yisrael, the children of Yasharah. Let's read about that in Yirmiyahu, the idea of the national redemption. Let's go to Yirmiyahu 23, verse 5. See, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall raise for David a branch of righteousness, and a sovereign shall reign and act wisely, and shall do right ruling and righteousness in the earth. In his days, Yahudah, which is the tribe that has been called Judah, in his days, Yahudah shall be saved. And Yisrael, or Yasharel, they shall dwell safely. And this is his name whereby he shall be called. Yahuwah Zedkenu. Yahuwah, our righteousness. And everyone who studies the scriptures, no matter their background, we all know that this is clearly a picture of the Messiah. It's talking about the Messiah. It is clearly telling us that this Mashiach, this anointed one who's going to come forth from King David, that he's going to rule and reign, and he is going to be called Yahuwah Zidkenu. He is going to be referred to as Yahuwah, our righteousness. So this is just a huge prophecy concerning the idea of the Messianic or the Messiah's redemption. The idea of the redemption that comes forth for the children of Israel. And for Yahudah, for the tribe of Yahudah at this time. But what more can we learn about this time of the national redemption of Yahuwah's people? Zechariah is a great place to start. Zechariah chapter 12, verse 2. See, I am making Yerushalayim, which is Jerusalem, a cup of reeling to all the people, all around, and also against Yahudah. It is in the siege against Yerushalayim. And in that day it shall be that I make Yerushalayim a very heavy stone for all people. And it is this day a very heavy stone for all the people. All lifting it are severely injured. And all the nations of the earth shall be gathered against it. It shall happen. We know that this will take place. The scriptures tell us clearly about the great battles that will take place at the very end of the age. In verse 9, if we skip on down, it says, and it shall be that day that I seek to destroy all the nations, all the Gentiles, all the Goyim that come against Jerusalem. And I shall pour on the house of David, the house of David, and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem. That means those who inhabit the land, those who inhabit Jerusalem. And that day he's going to pour upon them a ruach of favor and prayers. They shall look on me. And literally in the Hebrew, when it says me there, it's Aleph Tal, the first and the last of the Hebrew Aleph Beit. The Messiah never said, I am Alpha and Omega. He said, I am first and last. I am Aleph and Tal. It's very important in the scriptures. But literally it says, me, Aleph Tal, whom they pierced. This is talking about Messiah Yahushua, who was pierced. And listen to what it says. And they shall mourn for him. Who? The Aleph Tal, the first and the last. They will mourn for him as one mourns for his only son. They shall be in bitterness over him as a bitterness over the firstborn, because he is the firstborn of Yahuwah. He is the only brought forth son of Yahuwah. And they will be in bitterness for him on that day. On that day when the nations come against Jerusalem. On that day, then Yehudah will realize, they will look upon Yahushua HaMashiach, whom they pierced, and they will mourn for him. This is the time of the national redemption. This is the ultimate picture of Yom Kippur. It's not just the idea of the sacrifices and all the different elements, which are very, very important. It's so beautiful. But it is ultimately the outcome. Why is Yom Kippur important? It's because we want to be forgiven, reestablished as a people, reunited with our brothers and sisters in Yahuwah. That is why Yom Kippur is so important. So the national day of the redemption is coming, brothers and sisters. It is coming. We look forward to this time. We have already discovered and spoke of in great detail in the previous lesson, Yom Teruah, the Day of Trumpets, that the people will come to battle against Yasharel. The scriptures tell us that they will be in the valley of Yahushaphat. They will also come to Har Megiddo, which is called Armageddon in English today, translated from the Greek and the Latin, Armageddon, but it means Har Megiddo. Har means mountain. Literally, Megiddo is actually more like a big hill, but it's called a har. It's called a mountain. That's how it's usually translated, a mountain or a mound, a big hill. Har Megiddo, it's a real place, brothers and sisters. And the nations are coming, they're going to come to battle here. And when they do, they will begin to destroy the people of Yahuwah. And when they begin to do this, at this time, Yahushua HaMashiach will come. He will return. When he returns, they will look on him whom they pierced. Now let's continue on this track of the idea of the redemption, because we need to understand the redemption. You cannot understand Yom Kippur unless you understand the redemption. In Romans chapter 11, verse 25, it says, "For I do not wish you to be ignorant of this secret, brothers, lest you be wise." He's talking to the Romans. "Lest you be wise in your own estimation. The hardening or blindness, as the King James Version says, blindness or hardening in part has come over Israel." Not completely, only in part. So if it's not completely, what parts do they have right? Obviously, the Torah, the commands, the prophets, the importance of the Hebrew scriptures and the Hebrew Mashiach, the Hebrew Messiah. Those are the aspects. But they are blind in part. It says blindness or hardening in part has come over Israel until the completeness of the Gentiles has come in. And so all of Israel, all of Yisrael shall be saved, as it has been written. Now remember, we got to understand that the scriptures also say that in the latter times, that only a remnant shall remain. There's going to be bloodshed. There's going to be a great amount of bloodshed. Many of Yahuwah's people are going to be destroyed in the chaos of the war and all the things that are going to break loose on the earth. But that remnant that remains, they shall be saved. Each and every one of them will be saved. It says, "So all Yisrael or all Yisrael shall be saved, as it has been written, the deliverer shall come out of Zion, and he shall turn away wickedness from Yaakov," who is called Jacob. "And this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins," which is referenced in Jeremiah 31, it talks about the new covenant, the Brit Hadashah. It's also referenced in the book of Hebrews or Hebreim many times, that Yahuwah is going to make a new covenant with the house of Yisrael and Yaakov. It does not say, Yisrael and Yehudah rather, not Yaakov, but it does not say that he's making a covenant with the Christian church, brothers and sisters. You got to hear what I'm saying. We're supposed to be grafted into the olive tree. We have to understand that the olive tree is the nation of Yisrael, is the nation of Yasharal, those who walk upright, those who overcome with Yahuwah. We're to graft in. Okay? We have to be a part of the nation. When you join the nation, when you come through Yahushua HaMashiach, you no longer are considered to be outcasts. You are now a part of the nation. You're a part of the tree, a part of the people. So we have to understand these things. We have to grasp the importance of the role of Yasharel in these last days. Now we need to understand another thing. When we talked about previously, we talked about Moshe, the great prophet, and how he went up the mountain, and when he came down the mountain the first time with those tablets of sapphire stone that Yahuwah had wrote so beautifully with his own hand. He comes down the mountain, he catches the people in idol worship. He catches the people in sin. And the covenant had been annulled, and so therefore he broke the stones. And he went back up the mountain to make atonement. He went back up that mountain to renew the covenant, to bring a Brit Hadashah, a renewed covenant. He went up that mountain to gain a revelation of Yahuwah, and he came down, and he had such a presence of Yahuwah upon him that his face shone in such a way that it had to be veiled. The people were afraid. And when he came down that mountain, he came with the plans for the tabernacle in the wilderness. And all of these things can be paralleled in the life of Yahushua HaMashiach. When Yahushua comes back, when he comes back from that mountain that is in the Shamayim, Mount Zion up above, when he comes down from the Shamayim, from the heavens, he will establish the covenant. Listen to what it says in Yeshayahu, Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2. And it shall be in the latter days that the mountain of the house of Yahuwah is established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above all the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. And many people shall come and say, Come, let us go up the mountain of Yahuwah to the house of the Elohim of Yaakov, and let him teach us his ways, and let us walk in his paths. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah, and the word, the Debar Yahuwah, from Yerushalayim. Yahushua is called the word of Yahuwah, because the word will go forth from Yerushalayim. The Torah, he is the word of Yahuwah, therefore he is the living Torah. And the Torah shall go forth from Zion. This is to come. This has not taken place yet. Anyone who studies the scriptures and knows history knows that this is a prophecy for a time that is to come in the future, when Yahuwah will have a house on the earth and it will be established. And the Torah, the covenant of the Torah, shall go forth from Zion. So when Yahushua the Messiah comes, he will establish the covenant, just like Moshe when he went up that mountain and he came down with the renewed covenant. So Yahushua HaMashiach, he is the author of the renewed covenant with Yahuwah, the mediator between us. And he comes down to confirm that covenant. And what is the picture and the whole purpose of that covenant? It is the Torah. Because if you read in Yirmiyahu chapter 31, go read it. And when it says that he will create a Brit Hadashah, a renewed covenant, he says, I will write my Torah in their heart, not just on stone, not just on the skins of animals and the scroll, but in their hearts. That's the circumcision of the heart that the scriptures talk about throughout the scriptures. So the Torah will go forth from Zion, and the word of Yahuwah from Yerushalayim, and he shall judge between the nations, and shall reprove many people. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither teach battle anymore. What a beautiful concept. Perfect shalom, perfect peace. Just as Moshe came down the mountain, and his face shone. Matithyahu, Matthew chapter 17, verse 2 reads, And he was transformed before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his garments became as white as light. This is Yahushua HaMashiach. And Moshe, when he came down the mountain, as I said before, he came with the plans for the tabernacle. When Yahushua comes down from Mount Zion up above, and he comes down from the heavens, he comes down to build the house of Yahuwah that must be established above the hills, just as we read, above all the mountains.